Forget about the future consequences, the salary cap magic, or how they'll eventually settle the bill. They're just shifting funds from one column to another. But the bottom line is this. Today, this team got younger and a whole lot better. After just 24 hours of free agency, I'm calling it the New Orleans Saints are the undisputed winners. They've been operating with a ferocity that is completely out of character for this organization. Normally, we see the Saints playing the waiting game, patiently picking through the second and third waves of free agents for value deals once the initial market frenzy has subsided. But under the new leadership of Kellen Moore, this team launched an immediate assault on the 2026 offseason. A massive part of that newfound aggression stems from a simple fact. For the first time in years, the Saints actually have money to spend. They weren't forced into the usual desperate scramble of cutting key players and reworking countless contracts just to become cap compliant before the league year started. The franchise entered this period with around $20 million in cap space, granting them the power and flexibility to aggressively target their most glaring needs from the jump. And that's precisely the strategy they deployed. With that cash, the Saints went out and landed the top guard in free agency, David Edwards, from the Buffalo Bills, instantly plugging what was arguably the biggest gaping hole on their entire roster. They followed that up by signing the second best running back on the open market, Travis Etienne, injecting a dynamic, high-level offensive weapon who can threaten a defense in numerous ways. The spending spree continued with another playmaker in tight end Noah Fant. Beyond that, they shored up their special teams by signing punter Ryan Wright, and while that might not move the needle for most, for this team, it's a monumental upgrade. The Saints have cycled through 4 different punters in the last 4 seasons, and not a single one has been consistently effective. However, the story isn't just about the additions. It's also about the departures of core players, including the legendary heart of the franchise, Demario Davis, who, in a stunning move, signed with the New York Jets. On top of that, defensive back Alontae Taylor took a massive payday from the Titans. And now, the situation has become even more volatile, with rampant speculation that Alvin Kamara could be on the verge of retirement. A whirlwind of activity is engulfing the Saints. So let's dive into the chaos, starting with the most sensational signing of them all, running back Travis Etienne. The running back room was a critical area that the Saints had to overhaul, especially after fielding the 28th ranked rushing offense last year. You could certainly argue that the fault lay with a porous offensive line rather than the running backs. Fair enough, but eventually, your game changers have to change the game, and the Saints' backs were simply not creating plays. Alvin Kamara hasn't managed to finish either of the last 2 seasons due to injury, and his entire future with the organization is now in question, which we will address in a moment. Recognizing this, the Saints made a blockbuster move, signing Travis Etienne to a colossal 4-year, $54 million deal, a homecoming for the Louisiana native. Etienne played his last 4 seasons for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who drafted him 25th overall in the 2022 NFL Draft. Over that time, he's accumulated nearly 3,800 rushing yards, caught 168 passes for 1,300 more, and scored a combined 32 touchdowns. In that same window, Etienne has produced 3 1,000-yard rushing seasons. For context, the Saints haven't had a back eclipse the 1,000-yard mark since Mark Ingram in 2017. But the game-breaking speed he brings might be even more valuable. This past season alone, Etienne ripped off 3 runs of over 40 yards. To contrast, since the 2020 season, the Saints have had only 1 run from a running back go for over 30 yards. That was by Audric Estime last year against the Tennessee Titans. Since 2022, Etienne has 12 runs of over 30 yards. The Saints' entire running back core has 1. This is a game-changing acquisition. Getting a true home run hitter into this offense is going to be transformative, particularly within Kellen Moore's system, which is predicated on balance and explosive plays. A more formidable running game will also dramatically simplify things for second-year quarterback Tyler Shough, who appeared ecstatic about the signing on his social media. Travis Etienne is almost certainly going to be the lead back for the Saints, given his age, his talent, the financial commitment, and where he is in his career arc compared to Alvin Kamara. Etienne is set to be the main weapon out of the backfield, potentially splitting some carries with Alvin Kamara if he's even still with the team. You see, the Saints recently reworked Kamara's contract, but this was far from a typical restructure. The deal was specifically engineered to make it much easier, financially, for the Saints to release him, if they so choose. And when you consider that the front office has just shown its readiness to move on from franchise legends like Demario Davis and Cameron Jordan, there's no reason to think Alvin Kamara would be any different. And now you have Ian Rappaport amplifying the noise, discussing the very real possibility that Kamara could retire. This development obviously throws the entire status of Alvin Kamara, who just signed that new contract, into extreme doubt. And I believe it's fair to speculate that some have questioned whether he might just decide to walk away from the sport while at his peak. And I think the phrase he used was, end up sipping a Mai Tai on the beach. We are now seeing numerous reports confirming that Alvin Kamara's future with the franchise is entirely uncertain. Therefore, signing Travis Etienne gives the Saints an immediate, electrifying answer at a position where they desperately needed a spark. And honestly, this move shouldn't take them out of the running for a player like Jeremiah Love with their 8th overall pick either. All in all, this is a thrilling acquisition for the Saints. They get a dynamic playmaker, solve a major weakness, and add a player whose skill set is a perfect match for what Kellen Moore wants to accomplish on offense. Of course, a great running game is impossible without a great offensive line to lead the charge. Let's be honest, the Saints' interior offensive line was a complete disaster last season, but even with that truth, the running back core was devoid of any real firepower, which is precisely why they went after Travis Etienne. But Kellen Moore made one thing crystal clear at the NFL Combine. The Saints absolutely had to get better at running the football. In fact, he put a giant spotlight on the guard position, calling it out as a critical area needing a fix. And on day one, the Saints didn't just listen, they launched an assault. Beyond snagging Travis Etienne, they landed David Edwards, the guard from the Buffalo Bills, who many consider the crown jewel of free agency. They locked him down with a massive 4-year, $61 million contract. The second-year head coach is clearly building a fortress to protect his quarterback and unleash a dominant ground game, and the front office wasted no time executing that vision. David Edwards first entered the league with the Los Angeles Rams as a 5th-round pick back in 2019, spending his first 2 seasons there. But his transformation into a dominant force happened during his last 2 years with the Buffalo Bills. In 2025, Buffalo fielded one of the most punishing rushing attacks in the NFL, and Edwards was a primary reason for that dominance. Last season alone, he was on the field for 1,035 plays, was flagged for only 3 penalties, and surrendered a mere 3 sacks. That brand of ironclad reliability is precisely the anchor the Saints have been desperate for at the left guard spot. Edwards represents a monumental upgrade for that position, bringing veteran leadership next to the young tackle Kelvin Banks while simultaneously blasting open holes for Travis Etienne. When you survey the Saints' offensive line right now, it suddenly looks formidable. You've got 2 incredibly young and talented tackles in Kelvin Banks and Taliesin Fuaga. Now you have David Edwards poised to be an absolute wall at left guard. And assuming Eric McCoy remains on the field at center, he stands among the NFL's elite. The war in the trenches for this Saints offense may finally be tilting in their favor. Before we continue with the breakdown, I'd really appreciate it if you could spare 5 seconds to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and fuel the hype. We are on a mission to hit 20,000 subscribers before the year is out, and I can't get there without your support. We are so close to 17K, but only 10% of the people who watch are actually subscribed. So please, take a moment, join the community, and help the channel grow. We're dropping new informational content every single day because this is the ultimate spot for regular fans like us to chop it up about the NFL. Okay, back to the action. The Saints continued their offensive overhaul by making another significant move, acquiring tight end Noah Fant on a 2-year contract and adding another dynamic weapon to their arsenal. This isn't the first time Noah Fant has been on the Saints' radar. They were reportedly making a strong push to sign him last offseason, right before the preseason started, before he ultimately chose to join the Cincinnati Bengals. His journey through the league has been extensive, with 3 seasons in Seattle, 3 in Denver, and this past year in Cincinnati. Throughout that time, his production has been undeniable. 334 receptions for 3,500 yards and 18 touchdowns, cementing his status as one of the league's most seasoned pass-catching tight ends. From the Saints' perspective, the tight end position was another glaring weakness that demanded attention. Juwan Johnson is emerging from a breakout season and is cemented as their #1 guy. But after him, the depth chart was perilously thin, with Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau currently not on the roster. They absolutely had to secure a legitimate #2 tight end, and they accomplished that by bringing in Noah Fant. The addition of Fant immediately unlocks the potential for 12 personnel formations, allowing 2 tight ends on the field simultaneously to create devastating matchup problems within Kellen Moore's offensive scheme. This is a foundational element of his system, something he really wasn't able to fully utilize last season. Now, while this might not be a franchise-altering signing, it is an incredibly intelligent move for an offense desperate for more playmakers and reliable depth. Fant also brings a solid blocking ability to the table. He's not purely a blocking specialist, but it's a skill he executes very well, adding yet another layer of unpredictability to the Saints' offensive attack. During his time with the Bengals last season, he hauled in 34 catches for 288 yards and 3 scores. So, this isn't the most sensational signing of the offseason. However, it is an astute acquisition that provides both depth and tactical flexibility to a Saints offense desperately trying to forge a new identity. The Saints also went out and signed a punter. Now, that might not sound exhilarating, but believe me, it is a crucial development. For the last 4 seasons, the Saints have been stuck in a chaotic cycle of instability at that very position. We're talking about 4 different punters in 4 years. It's one of those situations where you never appreciate a good punter until you're stuck with a terrible one. And for 4 long years, the Saints have been enduring that very nightmare. Last season reached a low point when the Saints had a pathetic 17-yard punt in a tight contest against the Tennessee Titans, a perfect symbol of one of the league's most ineffective special teams units. So, the front office moved with purpose and secured punter Ryan Wright on a 4-year, $14 million agreement. Wright is the kind of player who can single-handedly flip field position. In tight games, that is a game-changing asset. Last year, his average punt traveled 49 yards. The Saints haven't had a punter break the 48-yard average since the legendary Thomas Morstead all the way back in 2016. Wright also dropped 30 punts inside the 20-yard line, which was the 6th best mark in the NFL in 2025. He launched the longest punt of the entire season, a 77-yard monster, and boasted the 3rd highest net average in the league at 44 yards per punt. This is a massive upgrade, even if it doesn't grab headlines. The Saints entered the offseason with 3 glaring deficiencies on their roster: guard, running back, and punter, and a strong case could be made for a number 2 tight end as well. And on the very first day of free agency, they aggressively addressed all of them and got their targets. But of course, as new players arrived, some important veterans departed. Franchise legend Demario Davis is returning to the New York Jets, inking a 2-year, $22 million contract for his 3rd stint with that organization. And losing a leader like Demario Davis stings, there's no doubt about it. But the Saints are in the process of a rebuild, and Demario Davis is 37 years old. Committing that kind of contract to a veteran linebacker at this stage of his career simply doesn't align with where the Saints are as a franchise. If the Saints had gone out and signed a 37-year-old linebacker from another roster to that very deal, the fan base would likely be in an absolute frenzy. The Saints undoubtedly wish they could have held on to Demario Davis. He remains a force on the field and an undeniable leader. However, justifying that massive salary simply wasn't a realistic move for the franchise. And while the decision stings on an emotional level, it perfectly aligns with the Saints' new vision of building a younger team. They've already got second-year linebacker Danny Sitzman poised and ready to step up alongside Pete Warner. But this now opens a thrilling possibility. What if a talent like Sonny Styles is available at number 8 for the Saints? They could pull the trigger on draft night. Still, make no mistake, with Demario Davis gone, the Saints have lost far more than just a player. They are losing their captain, the voice of the locker room, a pillar in the community, and the man who ignited the team with his pregame speeches. This is a man who has been an integral part of the team's very fabric since he joined back in 2018, and it's a near certainty he'll be immortalized in the Saints Hall of Fame and Ring of Honor one day. But from Demario Davis's point of view, the whole thing is a bit of a mystery. You would assume that for what is likely his final contract, he would want to join a team with a real shot at the title. A powerhouse like the Rams, the 49ers, Chiefs, Bills, or Ravens, a franchise on the cusp of a championship, would have seemed a much more logical fit for the 37-year-old linebacker. Instead, he signs with the Jets, arguably one of the most dysfunctional organizations in the NFL, led by a coach whose job is constantly in jeopardy. But when it's all said and done, cash is king, and Demario Davis secured his bag. Meanwhile, in another major move, Alontae Taylor inked a colossal deal with the Tennessee Titans, reuniting with Robert Saleh in Tennessee. This development came as no great shock, especially after Alontae Taylor posted what was essentially a farewell message to the Saints and their fans on social media just days earlier. So, everyone saw this coming. There is absolutely no question that Alontae Taylor is a gifted athlete. He possesses the imposing size, the raw physicality, and the ferocious style of play that teams crave, but the Saints never let him settle, constantly shifting him around. One season he's in the slot, the next he's on the outside, a strategy that likely hampered his growth. And yet, his on-field performance has been far from spectacular. Since being drafted in the second round in 2022, Alontae Taylor has been targeted by opposing quarterbacks more than anyone else in the NFL. He surrendered the most receptions in the league, given up the most yardage, and allowed the fourth most touchdowns in the entire NFL. On top of that, he's posted a 21.6% missed tackle rate, which ranks as the fourth worst among all cornerbacks with at least 100 attempts. So, when you examine it through that lens, Alontae Taylor has faced some serious struggles. But it's not all negative. There are bright spots. Since 2022, Taylor has deflected 52 passes, a figure that ranks fourth in the NFL, trailing only Denzel Ward, Tariq Woolen, and Mike Jackson. He also managed to rack up 7 sacks for the Saints, an incredibly rare feat for a quarterback, and actually the highest number ever recorded by a defensive back in the history of the franchise. So, it's clear the Titans are gambling on his immense upside and his ability to be a versatile weapon all over the field. Perhaps Robert finds the perfect role for him, but his exit, just like the departure of Demario Davis, rips a significant hole in the Saints' secondary. A prospect like Caleb Diaz could potentially fill the slot role if they select him with the 8th overall pick. Or maybe Manor DeLay, the cornerback out of LSU, emerges as a compelling option for them early in the draft. Looking back, this was a commanding day one of free agency for the New Orleans Saints. Overhauling the run game was a top priority this offseason, and they attacked it with 2 huge moves. First, they locked down the explosive playmaker Travis Etienne with a fairly substantial contract. Then, they signed David Edwards, a top-tier guard tasked with creating lanes for Travis Etienne and protecting Tyler Shuck. They also resolved their punter issue on special teams, all while continuing their mission to build a younger roster across the board. To top it all off, they brought in tight end Noah Fant, which stands as another very strong addition. It may not be a game-breaking move, but it's an intelligent one. Defensively, however, they suffered 2 critical losses. They parted ways with 2 key starters from last season, Demario Davis and Alontae Taylor, leaving some glaring holes on that side of the ball. But the Saints will have plenty more chances to fill those voids as free agency continues. And of course, the NFL draft is right around the corner. Thank you for making it to the end of the video and for checking out the Cash Football channel. Do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe, and help spread the word. We are pushing to hit 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're getting so close to 17,000, and I really need your support to get us over the top. Let me know what you think down in the comments about the Saints' first day of free agency, your favorite signing, all of it. I'm Cash, and I will see you next time. Have a great one.